Good afternoon. We have a land use hearing this afternoon, CPZC 21-004. It is July 1st, 2021. My name is Jill Foster. I'm the Marion County Hearings Officer. We have just the one land use case today, which is the application of Anthony Arnatov. Say that properly? I think everybody who has, thank you. Everybody has signed in and provided their mailing address if they plan to testify or would like a copy of the decision. First, we are going to go over the list of procedures, and then we can begin our hearing. First, we'll go through the nature of the case, then preliminary objections. I will summarize the material in the case file, which will become a part of the record. Planning Division will present its staff report and recommendation. The applicant or representative will present their case. Then we will hear any testimony in favor of the application, any testimony in opposition to the application, any general comments that anyone wants to make, and then the applicant will have an opportunity for rebuttal because the applicant has the burden of proof in this land use case. We will then close the hearing unless there's a request by any party to keep it open. No decision will be made today at the hearing. My recommendation will be made in writing. A copy will be sent to the applicant, any interested parties, affected governmental agencies, and anyone who just requests a copy. My decision will be a recommendation to the Board of Commissioners. The board can hold another hearing for which notice will be sent to anyone who received notice for this hearing. I am recording the hearing today, and testimony is taken from the tables up front and will be under oath or affirmation. This recording will become a part of the official record. The record in this case is public record. Any documents that are submitted become part of the record and generally cannot be returned. If you have any documents you would like to submit to the record, please let the other party take a look at them and give them to me, and I will mark them as exhibits and make them a part of the official record. That's any new exhibits that have not previously been submitted. Failure of an issue to be raised in a hearing in person or by letter, or failure to provide statements or evidence sufficient to afford the decision maker an opportunity to respond to the issue may preclude an appeal based on that issue and may preclude it from being raised at a later time. Failure of the applicant to raise constitutional or other issues relating to the proposed conditions of approval with sufficient specificity to allow the government, local government, or its designee to respond to the issue precludes an action for damages in circuit court. For a condition of approval to apply, it must be stated with sufficient specificity to enable the applicant to respond to the condition prior to the close of the local hearing. I have had no ex parte communication in this matter, which means I've not had any contact with any of the parties about this case outside of today's hearing, and I have only seen what is in the court file. The matter before the Marion County Hearings Officer today is the application of Anthony Arnatov to change the comprehensive plan designation from developing residential to multifamily residential, and to change the zone from UD, urban development, to RM, multifamily residential, on a 2.25 acre lot located at 4310 and 4330 Monroe Avenue Northeast, Salem, Oregon. The subject property is within the Salem urban growth boundary and designated developing residential in the Salem Area Comprehensive Plan. The property's current UD zoning is under the jurisdiction of Marion County. The applicant proposes to keep the house associated with 4330 Monroe Avenue and tear down the other home and redevelop with multifamily units. Before I summarize the material in the case file, I'll ask if there is any preliminary objections to notice, jurisdiction, my authority to hear the matter, or a conflict of interest based on bias. Any objections? Hearing no objections, I will summarize the case file. I have the case file right here. It contains the application, narrative statements. It contains comments from agencies, including fire department, the Public Works. It also contains statements from Paul and Melody Bycroft, supplemental application statements from John Brosey, and this complete file will be made a part of the record. All testimony shall be directed to the subject matter of this case. The laws and provisions applicable to this case are found in Marion County Code Chapter 16, Marion County Comprehensive Plan, specifically 16.43020, statewide planning goals to the extent applicable, and also to the extent applicable, the Oregon revised statutes. Those are the criteria that I believe apply, and if you believe any of these don't apply or have additional criteria you would like me to apply, please let me know in your testimony. Any procedural questions before we get started? No? Okay, we will begin with Planning Division presenting the report before we go to the applicant. So I will go to Ms. Schrems. Please state your name, spell your last name and address for the record.
All right, my name is Alyssa Schrems. Last name is spelled S-C-H-R-E-M-S. I'm with Marion County Planning Division. We are at 5515 Silverton Road Northeast, Salem. I think the zip code is 97305.
Okay, thank you. And Ms. Schrems, do you swear or affirm that the testimony you will give in this proceeding will be true to the best of your knowledge?
I do.
Please proceed and present your report.
All right, so the item before you today is an application for a zone change and comprehensive plan amendment on property that is currently zoned urban development with a corresponding developing residential comp plan designation in the Salem area comprehensive plan. The applicant is requesting to change the zone to multifamily residential and the comprehensive plan designation to multifamily residential. So the property is located at 4310 and 4330 Monroe Avenue Northeast, Salem. There have been no previous land use cases on the property. Surrounding properties are predominantly zoned single-family residential with some pockets of urban development zoned land interspersed in all directions. There are RM properties approximately 0.011 miles to the west. Oh, sorry, I put an extra 0.11 miles to the west towards Lancaster Road, and a mobile home park zoned RM at the terminus of Monroe Avenue, approximately 0.24 miles to the east. So the staff report has been prepared and is provided as part of the file, reviewing the relevant decision criteria, and we do recommend approval based on the evidence provided. So today we are not making a final decision, it is going before the Board of Commissioners. Today what we're doing is a recommendation. So we can leave the hearing open, we can close the hearing and leave the record open, close the hearing and approve, modify, or deny the request.
Okay. Thank you. All right, so we will now proceed to the applicant. Please state your name, spell your last name for the record, and provide your address.
John L. Brosy, B-R-O-S-Y. Business address is 161 High Street Southeast, Suite 224, Salem 97301.
Thank you, Mr. Brosy. And do you swear or affirm that the testimony you will give in this matter will be true to the best of your knowledge?
I do.
Thank you. Please proceed.
Thanks. As mentioned, I'm representing the Arnatov family. Anthony Arnatov is the deed holder. The Arnatov family have lived on Monroe Street. Parents still live there for 24 years. And for a number of years, a couple of the brothers of the family were in the land development, interested in land development in their careers. And there was a standing offer to the property owners next door, the neighbors, that when the time came that they would offer to purchase the property. Well, as time went on, of course, they ended up acquiring that property from the estate and assembled the property that you see before you in the application. The intention is for the rezoning of the entire ownership. However, Mr. and Mrs. Arnatov, the parents, continue to live on the one house, and then one of the accessory buildings will be removed, but the rest of the property will be prepared for development. So that's a little bit of background there. Their intention, one of the reasons why we presented a lot of additional information than we normally would not do at a comprehensive plan and zone change stage of development. And we showed the intent of development mainly because the Arnatovs want to hold on to this property. They want to develop themselves and continue to on the property as owner operators. The UD zone that the county has and the comparable zone classification, plan classification that the city comprehensive plan has is really a holding zone with waiting for specific development requests and rezoning. Multifamily is one of the uses that and specific zoning that was anticipated in the UD as well as the city comparable designation. I submitted a number of attachments along with our proposed findings of fact and narrative, and also the traffic engineer's study. I want to point out a couple things that are actually just the exhibits that we have in the record. One is attachment number 10, which is the comprehensive plan pattern in the area. You'll be able to see this on that attachment, but what I wanted to point out is there's a pretty significant smattering of the UD zones, including this one here, which is the Arnatov property, but this one here, excuse me. But it's certainly not the only one that is in this category. And generally what's been happening over time is if and when those other properties have the full complement of urban utilities and are on a street or can build a street to urban standards, typically the redevelopment has been at a higher density than single family. The same pattern is shown on our attachment 11, which is the county zoning. This is just a little bit, just shows a wider neighborhood, but these gray areas are that same holding zone pattern. So the comprehensive plan for the city is the controlling document here. We also had, we submitted the supplemental information about the four standards that the county has. So that's part of your record. There's plenty of multifamily zoning as well as single-family zoning in the vicinity, and we certainly appreciate staff's conclusion on their conclusion number 10 on the top of page 5, which said that because of the mix of zones in the area, that it would be unlikely that this would have any adverse effect on the adjacent properties. We want to stress that this site does have some unique advantages. One is the access to the side street Deanna, which will be approved per the county standards. But you also have sort of a built-in buffer to the east. As you're aware, the East County has one of the drainage districts, or one of the drainage areas, is the Pudding River Basin, and the development pattern, or the way that that's been channeled through the years historically has been through a series of drainage ways. You can call them ditches if you want, but they're drainage ways. They have different profiles depending on which block you're on and how much water the district assumes needs to be conveyed during high water times. But what that provides for us anyway is a 30-foot buffer that's all on the other property. There's a 30-foot wide easement in the Cornerstone subdivision immediately to the east, and so those property owners have to stay back at least 30 feet because that's where this relatively gradual sloped swale exists. So you add that to the 12-foot setback that we have to have at minimum, you're talking about at least a 42-foot buffer there that's mandated by law. And whatever we can do for landscaping on the top of that slope on our property, we would probably do to just for the benefit of the homes in the project. To the north, of course, we have Monroe Street, which is a collector street. To the south, the recently developed Smokestack subdivision, redevelopment of an old railroad right-of-way with unusually configured lots, but lots nonetheless, along that old railroad right-of-way and served by private streets. But that's immediately to the south, and consequently there are new 6-foot-high fences along that frontage, so there's a good buffer there as well. So you don't often get that with these projects, but this property has those sort of built-in advantages. The traffic engineering study that we did, it was every time you do a traffic study, they start with talking to the local jurisdictions to agree on what intersections to analyze for existing operation and future operation, with or without the development application. In this case, our consultant talked to the city's traffic engineer as well as the county traffic engineer, and they analyzed the future development, future operation, I should say, of Monroe at Lancaster, as well as Deanna at Monroe. And their conclusions, which are on page 26 of their application and my attachment 3, are worth noting. This traffic engineering company, it's called Lancaster Mobley. They said no significant trends or crash patterns were identified at any of the study intersections that are indicative of safety concerns. They said adequate site distances are available at both proposed access locations to ensure safe operations along Deanna Street. And they said that due to insufficient main and side street traffic volumes, traffic signal warrants are not projected to be met at the intersection of Lancaster at Monroe under any of the analysis scenarios. Now, they went on to say that the city is contemplating an access management plan that may eventually lead to some improvements to some of these key intersections along Lancaster. Everybody knows it's a busy thoroughfare, so we know that that's coming, but it hasn't happened quite yet. Their conclusory sentences that the proposed zone change and subsequent development project will not impact or alter the functional classification of any existing or planned facility. Proposal does not include a change to any functional classification standards, meaning it's not going to flip any of the intersections analyzed into a lower standard. They have a number of standard levels, and the zone change will not degrade the performance of any existing or planned transportation facilities below acceptable city or county standards, and accordingly the transportation planning rule is satisfied. So that's a summary of a very large and attachment to the application, but suffice it to say, as I said earlier, the scope was ahead of time. It was agreed upon by both the city and the county, and that was the conclusion.
May I interrupt you briefly on that? It is a large document, and I have gone over it one time. Is there anything in the traffic study about the impact with the schools there and using that intersection for pickup and buses?
For schools and buses?
Yeah.
I don't think that's in the
Okay.
application. I may have missed it. I've read it once or twice.
Okay, thanks.
Now, regarding, so obviously I don't want to belabor the application too much we think we did a pretty thorough job of addressing the standards. We worked with the city staff pretty thoroughly to understand their comprehensive plan policies for the property and for the vicinity. We ended up with a brief but positive letter into the record, but I just want to let you know that we did have several conversations with them. It was unfortunate, but we typically talk to a neighborhood association, and I have met with the East Salem Neighborhood Association before on previous applications, but I made several attempts early on to contact them and offer a presentation, and there were no responses taken. So I understand there is one letter in the record that you've received. It might be better, leave it up to the hearings officer, but it might be better for me to reserve my comments until after that person has had a chance to speak. But I want to do that as a
Okay.
rebuttal opportunity.
Yes, you certainly have an opportunity to do that.
Okay.
I agree with you.
So my conclusion is pretty obvious that we agree with the staff. We think the staff comments were supported by our land use application. We think that of all the UD zone pockets there are in this vicinity, this one is well suited for development at this density. All the utilities are there, as we exhaustively reported. In fact, I think I may have better mapping of the water district out there than the county staff does. But in any case, the area is already well served, and we are prepared to develop the other half of Deanna Street and the frontage along Monroe as this development goes through the specific development permit process. So unless there are other questions, the architect is here, the representative of the owner is here if you have any specific questions of them, but this would conclude our comments until the rebuttal.
Okay. I think I just have a brief question to making sure I'm understanding your submission. Talking about this being not a traditional comprehensive plan change, without the need to go through state goals. You maybe give me just a little bit more on that? That I want to make sure all criteria, to the extent they need to be satisfied, are satisfied.
It's, the point there is that the existing zoning does anticipate a lot of different specific zones upon more specific applications. And so that's why I thought, well, we talked to staff and I said, well, it's the city and the county designations here anticipate higher density as an option given all the other facts, including utilities and other neighboring and vicinity facts and that sort of thing. And that's why I made that comment. Is okay. It's the existing designation or that holding zone kind of thing is flexible enough to say that this would be in conformance with the comprehensive plan. I think that's sort of why the city made the comments that they made, okay, rather than oppose it. And that's also why I didn't do a rendition of how this conforms to statewide goals, for the same reason. I'd be happy to do that if it's necessary, but those are the reasons why I didn't think it was a classic comprehensive plan change where we're changing from something that is specifically different than what we propose.
I don't think I need that. I just want the record to be complete on whether those state goals need to be analyzed any further. So I think you've done that.
I'm sorry, could you say it again?
I want the record to be complete. If there's anything else beyond the paragraph in your submission,
okay,
just get that on the record.
Yeah, obviously, if there are additional things that you think are necessary, we'd be willing to talk about it then, but that's the reason why I consider this that kind of, and staff seemed to agree, and so we proceeded in that.
Okay.
Yeah, we had it's hard to remember, but way back in October is when our
Right.
pre-application meeting was. And typically, the county doesn't require one, but we made up our own form and came up and made an application fee. But because of good old COVID, it ended up being a conference telephone call. That's as far as we got. But we did get comments from Fire District 1, and you saw their development-related comments that are in the record.
Right.
And the city made comments as well, but it was sort of an unusual time to be applying.
Right.
And I'm very happy, by the way, and thank you for not having to speak through a mask. That was real difficult last time.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay. Is there anybody else that wanted to present testimony in favor of the application? No? Okay. Is there anyone that would like to present testimony that is in opposition to the application? Please come forward. Good afternoon. Please state your name, spell your name for the record, and then provide your address.
Good afternoon. My name is Paul Bycroft, B-Y-C-R-O-F-T. Address is 4290 Monroe Avenue Northeast, Salem 97301.
Okay.
I don't have a lot of comments at this time.
Let me swear you in real quickly.
Oh.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you'll give in this proceeding will be true to the best of your knowledge?
I do.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Bycroft. Please proceed.
Just a couple comments. You've received our written comments.
I have. It is part of the record, yes.
Thank you. When they're proposing, or the preliminary site proposal that the Arnatovs have shows 54 units on 85,000 plus square feet, allowing for 1,500 square feet per unit. But as I was looking at the site, the proposed site that they have, they're not taking into account the loss of footage for improving Deanna Street, and it didn't look like they took into account the 20-foot buffer on the south side that they're talking about. I'm not sure if the 12-foot buffer on the east side is relevant or not, I'm sorry, but I think that 54 units is kind of overloading that area. Also want to comment that, as has been stated, the surrounding properties, this particular property, are all single-family residents. There are multifamily and residential limited family units to the west, I'm sorry, and it has been mentioned the trailer park to the east. All of those properties abut either commercial or industrial properties. This particular site does not. It's smack dab in the middle of single family. And that concerns us. I'm surprised there are not more neighbors here, but I don't know if they think it's a fait accompli or not. But also, when they did the traffic density study, I never saw a traffic counter out on Monroe looking at how much traffic there is. You mentioned the bus stop. That's a question I was going to raise, but it's been raised. So typically at the corner of Deanna and Monroe, right in front of our house, during school season, one or more buses stop to pick up or drop off, depending on the time of day.
What do you see the impact being with this development with the?
Well, to be honest, I'm not sure. It's just another addition of children walking through the neighborhood and more traffic because of the increased density that's being proposed. So I'm afraid that an impact would have to be judged later. The other areas in the immediate area that are zoned UD are not really large enough to have a multiple family RM zone change. They're usually maybe large enough for another house or two. And that's pretty much my comments. I appreciate the time.
Thank you, Mr. Bancroft. Is there anyone else who'd like to present testimony in opposition to the application? Okay, rebuttal? Hold on one minute. I guess I should have asked, are there any general comments that aren't in favor or opposed? I also have the opportunity. No? Okay.
We did do traffic counts. In fact, we had to go back and do them again because we did counts during the holidays, and between the COVID and the holidays, we figured that we better go back and do, take a look at what the real background numbers are. And so there was a little bit of delay in the study because of that. But I think that the study stands on its own, has been accepted by the county traffic engineers and the city traffic engineers. We appreciate getting Mr. Bycroft's comments in writing from the county staff. It's unfortunate, again, that the East Haverhill Neighborhood Association didn't give us an opportunity to speak. It happens sometimes, especially during the summer, but we could have discussed some of this maybe at a neighborhood meeting out at where they have their meetings. Some of the Mr. Bycroft's comments have probably been cleared up since he wrote this, but there's a misunderstanding. The application is for our M zoning, not the other zoning that he comments, not the RS. That's the whole point of the application. Makes reference to a standard that is in the plan development part of the code. We're not making an application under the plan development standards of the code. So those comments are just misplaced. The details for the development, I'll go back and say that the reason why we went to the extent of submitting attachment 6 and then 6A through D was to show the neighborhood the kind of project that we wanted to build, not the specific kind of project. We still have a lot of things to work out. There are some code things that Mr. Bycroft noted that we will address one way or the other. One of the, through the process, but this is not the time to sort of nitpick the application too much. There may be some neighborhood concern about the way that stormwater is conveyed through the property in the West Fork of, the clients always laugh when I said that's the West Fork of the Little Pudding River. It looks like a ditch, but it's actually, it is part of the Pudding River Basin, and that's how it's done out there. And that's sort of a background given and besides that, like I said earlier, it provides a great buffer to the east, at least. Some of the details in the development, specific development, will be worked out in the event that we are this zoning and planning change are approved. We wanted to show that the type of development, we didn't want to hide anything about that most of the units are 2 stories in a sort of a townhouse craftsman style. I'm very familiar with the architect's style. He and I have done a number of projects in the metro area over the years, and there's also, at this point anyway, we're considering doing a large number of one-bedroom apartments. That's one of the things the market's not really addressing too well. And I think back to my experience, and most everybody's lived in apartments, and once they get to a certain age, they had the experience. I remember the apartment I lived in the Dalles and the apartment I lived in Forest Grove were one-bedroom apartments. That fit my circumstance really well, and we thought that that's an underserved part of the market. So that's why we're suggesting that we build some of those. So we showed those as a possibility. Beyond that level of detail, I think it's just we just have to let us work out those details and submit through the county's building permit process. That's probably enough said about that, but I certainly respect the property owners, the neighbors' concern. It's a pretty sizable piece of property that's been vacant for a long time, and but I also do suggest that there's an advantage to have the owners wanting also to become the long-term owners, and there's a certain amount of interest, additional sensibility to neighborhood concerns is built into that. So that would conclude my rebuttal comments. Thank you.
Shrems, anything further?
I guess I would just say that as the applicant indicated, compliance with things like parking and other development standards are dependent on the actual submission for building permits and would be evaluated at a later time.
Okay. Thank you. Does anybody want to keep the record open for any reason? Okay. Then I think we'll close the hearing at the end of today and get a recommendation to you at my earliest opportunity. That will conclude our hearing then. We'll close it now. Thank you.